Hi, my name is Kelly Clement, and I'm the Director of Sales here at Metastock. In this video, I'll be talking to you about correlation, or the relationship between different securities. In understanding the relationship between securities, you can understand things that trade in a similar manner. With that, let's go ahead and go into a PowerPoint describing correlation. The concept of correlation is really to see if things are equal to each other, very similar to each other, or polar opposites of each other. So in this example on the PowerPoint, we're looking at a really basic example. Is an apple equal to an orange? Well, the answer is no. It's an opposite, right? So what if we were to look at an orange versus a smaller orange? Well, yeah, they're basically the same thing. They're just different sizes, right? So what we're trying to identify with correlation is whether things, in talking about the market specifically, are they similar to each other? Do they trade in the same way, or are they opposites of each other? So if I'm looking at correlation here between these two different charts, so one here I have the Dow Jones Industrial Average, and over here I have the Euro dollar. Now, do these look like they trade the same? No, they don't. They look like they trade very opposite of each other. They move in different directions. What if I were to talk about something like the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the ETF of the Dow Jones Industrial Average? Well, if you look at these charts, they look very similar. They have the same types of movements. It's a little different, but for the most part, it trades very much the same. And that's what we're looking for with correlation, is those relationships of whether something trades effectively together or if it should trade the inverse of something. So what happens with correlation is there's an indicator that you get that will give you a 1 and a range down to 0 and then down to -1. So if I have a 1, those trade perfect of each other. They mirror each other exactly, and they have the exact same movements. If I have a -1, I'm trading the polar opposite. So when one thing does 1, the other one does the exact opposite. It moves in the other direction. So if I was going up and I had and my relationship was -1 and the Dow was going up, then whatever it was on the other side would be going down in an exactly opposite direction. So that's what a correlation is and how it applies. So how would I use this on a chart and looking at the market? Well, there's actually 3 different ways we can use correlation in a software. One is correlation of one instrument to another. So basically what this is saying is if we're looking at, again, the Dow, and we're looking at the Dow Mini, well, if those are moving together, we have a good idea that they'll trade together. They'll move in the same direction. And if we see something as a negative correlation, we know when one thing's moving up, that other's going to be moving down. So let's actually look at a chart for just a moment here. Let's actually look at that Dow example to start us off. So I'm just going to open up the Dow Jones here. And let's open up a clean chart. Okay, so here I have the Dow. So what I'm going to do is put in with it the Dow ETF that we're looking at, which is called the Diamonds. So let's go ahead and put this in its own window here. So again, we can see those movements. They look very similar, but the correlation indicator up here will let us check that and see how they actually move and if they move well together. So I'm just going to select both those plots, bring the correlation indicator in. Okay, now we see this movement. And over here you see that range we were talking about. We have the 1, and it never goes above 1. It'll stay right there down to -1. Now, this one is very highly correlated, meaning that it trades very similarly, so you're always going to see that range very close to 1. So I can see my value here. So right now I'm at 0.99372. So I'm very, very close to 1. So it tells me that the movement of these together are going to move very closely together. Now let's maybe look at a different example. Let's take maybe gold and silver. So let's open up the gold contract here. And let's just do a clean chart here again to be sure. And let's go ahead and put silver in there with it. Put that in its own window. And let's do a correlation along with that. Okay, so now what we're seeing here is, again, we have this one's a little differently because there's times that it does trade very closely and other times that it doesn't. So here we'll see right now we're very close to 1. We're at 0.83 right now, and there's been a lot of times that it does move with silver does move with gold. But it also has times that it does not. It has its own movement. So if it's at 0, it's not necessarily deviating, but it's not moving in tandem with gold. It's doing its own thing, and it's not trading a polar opposite. So if you were looking for things that moved similar to each other, you would want to watch the correlation to see if it's moving out of sync. And if it's starting to move out of sync, that could be a different opportunity for you. Okay, so that's a few examples of using correlation with price. Now let's look at our next example here. Correlation of an instrument's price to an indicator. Well, so what we're saying here is you can measure the relationship between an indicator and an instrument's price. So if it's, again, high, it works very closely. Okay, so let's take a look here, and let's put on an indicator. Let's just take off correlation here, and let's take off silver, and we can just stick with gold here, not a problem. So let's say, for example, we're interested in the MACD. Okay, so I'm just going to put the MACD on my chart, and I want to see if the MACD and gold are very closely correlated to each other. So again, I can just select those two plots, and then what I can do is grab correlation again and look for that relationship between them. Okay, so here we can see right now the MACD and gold are moving very closely to each other. They're mirroring each other very well. But what happened back here? We were all the way down at the -1. Okay, so you can use this as an example to see if your indicators are moving together, if they're in correlation with the security, and that can help guide you in the direction of your trade. Okay, so let's take the last example here. Correlation of one indicator to another. So if you wanted to see if two momentum-based indicators were working in tandem, or if one leads the other. Okay, so we can use it that way. So let's close this one out. And then we'll just stay with gold here. So let's take the RSI and the stochastic. So we'll do relative strength index, RSI, and let's do the stochastic. Okay, so already we know that these two indicators move very closely to each other by looking at it, but let's check our correlation. Let's see what the relationship is with them. Okay, so we're going to select the two, and then let's go ahead and select correlation. Now remember, this one's not based on price. This is the relationship between two indicators. Okay, so we actually do have a very high correlation between the RSI and the stochastic. So we have a 0.84, so it's a very high relationship with them. So they do move in tandem with each other right now. So that's the move. But you can see historically there have been times of divergence where they don't mirror each other as well. But for the most part, we do see a very high over time correlation upwards towards 1 in that area. Down where we start to come down here toward the 0, we start to lose that correlation. So that's a quick overview of correlation and how you can use correlation in the market. I hope you found this video instructional and useful in your trading, and thank you for choosing Metastock.